Well, we meet again, and we've had 3 previous sessions. I had 2 introductions. One was the type of introduction that I have tried for virtually 30 years to take scientific and medical terminology, which is heavy in Latin and Greek terms that are not used in everyday language, and trying to simplify this. And I have felt over the years that I try to put information in one side and it just flows out the other, and very little sticking in the middle. So I did another one, which I tried to relate to the ancient wisdom and insight that is in the Bible, because in the Bible there are scriptures, some from 5,000 and 2,000 years ago at least, that point out, and people believe in these, that the leaves of the trees and plants have molecules in it that are very powerful to support health. In fact, the Revelations quote is that the leaves of the trees shall be for the healing of the nations. Then I gave a general lecture that was taken from a presentation in Las Vegas for educators. And now I'm going to try to go to a more specific event that happened in the Chicago Cabrini Green housing project, the largest federal housing project in the United States. Another point I'd like to make is that in the past, I've worn a suit and a tie and tried to look like an expert or a professional. But during this pandemic, I think the professionals have debased the public confidence in so-called experts. And so I've attempted to, shall we say, just let you know I'm just like you, that I've had different experiences. And as I have frequently said, I haven't developed anything new. All I am is a messenger and a servant to share with you observations that have happened in different locations over and over again. So I think it gives it credibility. So at this point, we will go to the first slide of the Chicago brown bear experiences at Cabrini Green. This is an overview of what I'm going to present to you. And we call it the Chicago Results Project, of showing that dietary supplementation containing micronutrients improves student attitudes and performance. Now, the whole topic is called the Brown Bears of Cabrini Green. And this was due to a production area in the mid-1990s. One of the founders of the International Dietary Supplement Company said we ought to make something that improved nutrition that children would like. And at that time, the popular thing were gummy bears, little bear-shaped gelatin colors, morsels that children liked. And so he called the company that made the gummy bears, and they were very cooperative. They said all they had previously gotten were complaints about the colors affecting some children, and that interfering with their eating proper meals. And they liked the idea of a healthy bear. So we sent a formulation to a small company in California, and back came some beautiful little colorful bears that supposedly had what we had for improved nutrition in them. And they went like hotcakes. Fact is, we suspected maybe some adults were eating just as many as children. Fact is, we couldn't keep them on the shelf, so we finally had to go to a bigger company and sent the same formulation to them. And lo and behold, back came about $25,000 worth of brown bears that looked like dried raisins or prunes, and nobody wanted them. And they sat there in silence. There was a distributor in Chicago area that heard about this, that had a history of attention deficit disorder and hyperactivity syndrome. And he had been helped greatly by more comprehensive nutrition for adults. And he knew about these brown bears, and he went to multiple public schools that had special education classes, and he was literally thrown out. They had no interest. However, word got around Chicago, and this small church-sponsored school in Cabrini Green housing project called Israel had Israel Academy, and they had, I'd say about 50 or 60 children that had fallen through all the cracks of the public school system and were there in this relatively impoverished little private school called Israel Academy. I will share with you the first event that was at Parents' Night, and then information that I'll share with you. We have this study published in the Proceedings of the Fisher Institute. We have copies, and if you're interested in this, contact us. The best contact would be either when you're ordering one of the products on our website, or you can go directly to me, which is capital R and all the rest is lowercase, R McDaniel, McDaniel, just like Daniel in the Lions Den, at Wellness Quest, WLNESSQUST.org. And by web, I will send you a copy, but if you want a hard copy, we can include it in the package when you order New Eden, which would be the adult formulation of more comprehensive nutrition. I will, well, Luke, before we get through, I'll tell you about a Chicago regional meeting of this company where the little schools, 2 teachers and 4 girls came in to say thank you and what came of that. Then I'll share with you a article in Scientific American. It was an essay by 4 PhD academic educators about the agenda of American and actually international educators. And then we will terminate. So we'll go to the next slide. And the first thing that happened after the little Israel Academy is for years they had had Parents' Night, and in this environment, in the past, 0 parents showed up on attendance night. But after a semester of these brown bears and the children, every child had a representative, at least one parent in attendance. And the reason they came was, as we point out here, it says, my child, I can't believe what's happening. With no prompting, they get home and they get out their books and do their lessons for the next day, and we don't have to harass them or anything. They do it on their own. Number 2, we noted they don't fight with their younger brothers and older brothers and sisters or the neighbor kids, which was a constant factor in the past. We asked them to do something, and lo and behold, they do it. We asked them to stop some irritating activity, and they stopped. They said, this is not what I'm used to with my child. I know them quite well. This is major difference. And their question for coming to the school was basically, what are you doing up here? Now, we had evaluation forms, and from the teachers' evaluations, you can see that they rated on the scale that's vertical from exemplary to average to intolerable, that conflicts in the school were about 70% of the time, and they dropped significantly. The teachers thought it was about no more than about a third of 34%. That the noise in the school was just terrible, particularly in the halls and class changes. And as you can see, they said that was about 88%, and that dropped to significantly to 56%. And then the disruptions in the classrooms and the interactions of the students with each other and with the teachers and all kind of distractions were about 75%, and that dropped to, they estimated, about 36%, with nothing but the brown bears are micro amounts of improved nutrition. Now, there were students that were so young that in group A and B, that they were too young to have grades. But there were 41 students in this private school that were getting grades. And they had their evaluations before and after the improved nutrition and the improvement in grade points that we will go into greater detail in a graphic form. Now, teacher ratings at the Israel Academy, ability of children to grasp facts. They figured it before the improved nutrition, they getting about 30% of it, and that increased to about 80. That the participation of the students in the classroom constructively went from about half of them to about 71% of the time. About student-teacher cooperation improved. Student-to-student relationships and cooperation improved. There was an increase in homework being done and bringing it in done. The attention span of the students improved from 46 to 73%, and they felt like the learning environment of the school greatly increased. And there was an improvement in the grade point average of the school, which we'll hit in more detail. As far as their grades, the 41 students average grade was about a C, little below C, 2.98, with C plus being 3. And there was an increase after then to 3.6 and nearly to 4, which is almost a B. That may not sound like much. However, in the United States, I believe it was in Kentucky, that the governor appropriated several tens of thousands of dollars to implement what the education establishment said needed to be done to improve academic performance in that state. And they spent it and they got zero improvement. The state of Wisconsin saw their data and said, oh, they didn't do it right. And they appropriated significantly more millions of tax dollars and did the same thing, implementing the agenda of the education establishment. And they said, looky here, we got just a little bit of improvement. It paid off. Well, the legislature was skeptical, so they brought in a third outside party auditing firm and went through all the data, and they said there was no improvement. Well, allegedly, in the state of California, they looked at the data from Kentucky and Wisconsin, and they said, oh, they didn't do it well. So they appropriated $1 billion to be spent over 10 years to reduce the average class rate from about 23 students per class to 17, more time on task, more testing and all. And at 5 years, they evaluated what they had been doing. They had spent about half the money, and they could show no benefit at 5 years per this article in Scientific American. So to just micro amounts of improved nutrition to increase the average grade point average almost a point is much more significant when you consider that it was virtually at no cost. This is the Israel Academy teachers' evaluation of 17 habits and attitudes and how they had improved. Now, The backs of the evaluation forms that each teacher had was a blank, and the teachers wrote things that happened in their classes. And there's one of them that particularly brought me to tears and is really etched on my heart. And I want to share it with you because it is an incredible insight into what more comprehensive nutrition for the biochemistry and the physiology of the brain and how its function of the mind improves. Elmo came in from, according to this teacher, from recess, and he had some plastic brown glasses on, and she immediately jumped in and says, "Elmo, what are you doing with Elmira's glasses on? Put them on their desk and don't you touch them. You'll break them and their parents will be up here all over me." And he started trying to protest. She says, "Don't you backtalk me. You put those glasses on that desk." So he did it. In a few minutes, Elmira comes in and she has a pair of glasses on, just exactly like the pair that's on the desk. The teacher turns to Elmo and says, "Elmo, whose glasses are those you were wearing?" He said, "I tried to tell you and you wouldn't let me. They were my glasses." She says, "You've been in this school for 2 years and you never worn glasses. Why are you wearing?" He says, "Why should I wear glasses? I can't read." She says, "Why are you wearing glasses today?" He says, "I want to learn to read." And that is one of the biggest challenges to the human condition. Children are adults. You cannot educate individuals. Children are adults. You cannot improve society until there is a desire to improve. It's got to come from within. And that just was an incredible impact on me. In a few months, this dietary supplement company had a distributors conference in Chicago. And so 2 teachers and 4 little girls came and had a period before the group. And one of these little girls was like a pint-sized Oprah Winfrey. She went up to the microphone and she just commanded the attention of everyone like you would not believe. And she basically said, where we live, that when we go to school or go home, at least one of the times you'll hear gunshots. She said, where we live, the only people that have anything to speak of are selling drugs or prostituting. She says, however, now there's been a change. She says, I want to get my GED and go to college and major in journalism. And she says, my brother wants to go to special school and learn to be a mechanic, and my cousin wants to be an electrician. And from the audience, the voice rang out, why did you change your minds? She thought for a minute and she says, we can see that there's no future in all these other things. And there is a future with learning how to do constructive things. That has really stuck with me. And on my computer, I have a segment that this little girl went on and got her GED, got her credentials in journalism, and now is a video journalist and has a wonderful website that I can share with you. And I have been told that she has actually done some work with the Disney group in California. And one of the other little girls, I'm told, is getting her education and wants to go to medical school. This is so significant. I have tried to impact this little girl that does the video journalism, that she should do a story on the brown bears of Cabrini Green and find out if there are others in the school, and those 41 that were getting the grades or any of those that have gone on to more constructive activity in society. Now, the education agenda that I spoke of before, the National Education Association says basically there will be no academic improvements until there's more tax funding given to schools, that the class size should be less than 20. And in this article from the Scientific American by 4 PhDs in education, they point out that in the international countries, that the top scoring country has an average class size of 90. I told you about the Kentucky, Wisconsin, and California experiences. They also want to spend the money and the time to get special master's degrees for teachers, to pay them more as master's degrees, to have less uniform testing of national type. There should be more classroom freedom and less rating of teachers' performance, because they say that the lack of student performance is not the teacher's responsibility, because it's the parent and the home, and that there should be more time on task, more school hours, more days, and of course, more pay. Well, I think it's highly significant that with more comprehensive nutrition, almost homeopathic amounts of nutrition in these brown bears, that we got significant improvements. Now, the highest evidence-based science that we've been able to get the funds to do was this paper published in the Journal of Alzheimer's in January of 2013. The title of this paper was the effect of allopolymannose, and that allopolymannose is acetylated mannose, or ace-mannin, combined with other plant nutrient molecules, which is multinucleate complex, on cognitive and immune functioning in Alzheimer's disease patients. And point out that in this pilot study conducted at the Miller School of Medicine in Miami, Florida, in cooperation with the Miami Jewish Health Service, that they took Alzheimer's patients for 12 months, and there was a 69% response rate, 46% improved memory and cognition, 23% did not progress with their dementia, and the caregivers in the units reported 100% benefit, that all patients were happier, less hostile, which for this condition is legendary. They were more cooperative, had a better quality of life, and were easy to care for, and that the environment of the entire unit was elevated because the caretakers had never seen improvements in patients before, and they looked forward to coming to work rather than dreading it, wondering what new event could happen. So this was the highest level of evidence-based science that we've been able to do. Now, on my computer, I have published articles, 26 in number. I just gave you one of them. And it's a list of the titles and the authors with a small comment about each paper. It's not the actual paper. And if you would like a copy of this, if you will send me an email to, again, R. McDaniel, and that's no S on the end of the McDaniel, just like Daniel in the lion's den, R. McDaniel at wellnessquest.org, I'll send you a copy by the web. And what do you see here is that normal biochemistry and physiology of all human systems, which include the brain, are supported by more comprehensive nutrition. You say, well, why is this? Well, the engineering and design of life is coded in DNA, the nucleic acid of the genes, and they control cellular synthesis or assembly using nutrient, amino acids, fatty acids, carbohydrate units or sugars. vitamins, minerals, elements, and very critical special plant nutrients that add to this, that each cell is a little factory, and what it makes depends on which gene is elevated to move the biochemistry and physiology to the normal zone. So we don't treat, cure, or mitigate deviations from normal. We don't address diseases or syndromes. All we do with nutrition is in this statement here, we support the engineering and design of life that is coded in the genes that control cellular assembly of those bioactive compounds that carry out the normal biochemistry and physiology of life. With that, I bring it to an end. I hope this provides you with some specific observations that I have been fortunate enough to be present and be a part of, and I can share with you, because what you know and believe and is in your brain is very, very powerful. It can be, if it's erroneous or negative, it can be very detrimental to your health and to your lifestyle and to your relationships. And if it's very positive, it can be, on the contrary, very supportive of your life and activities. So I hope this is putting into your brain and its function positive information about how more comprehensive nutrition can improve life.